Hey there, Neurojack here with another video for you. Today I'm going to be talking about a paper that came out over 15 years ago now, but it's definitely one of my favourite. It was done by Patrick Haggards and the rest of some people in his lab at the Institute of Cognitive Neuroscience at UCL, and it showed how we can create an implicit marker of the sense of ownership that a person felt over their actions and the outcomes of their actions by looking at their perception of the temporal interval between the two events. Okay, so today's going to be a bit of a shorter video compared to last time, so let's get on with it. So, in the design of the experiment, very simple but had some great findings from it. The participant was asked to press a button and then they'd hear a tone after that. While they were doing this, they had a Libet style clock going around, and they were asked to estimate the time of the clock at which they either pressed the button or heard the tone. What they found was when they were allowed to volitionally press the button, hear the tone, the individuals reported a binding of the two events. So they reported that their perception of the time of the action was closer to the time that the tone occurred, and their perception of the time of the tone was closer to when the action occurred. They didn't find this, however, when the participant was either given TMS over their motor cortex, which meant they non-volitionally made... Okay, the cat's going to have to go, I think. Non-volitionally made an action, or when they just had the hand forced onto the button. Give me a moment, let me get the cat out. Sorry about that. Anyway, like I was saying, they had a condition in which they volitionally made the action, or one in which they had TMS applied to their motor cortex, applied to their primary somatosensory area, which meant that they involitionally made the action. They also had another condition, in which they just had their hand forced onto the button. So this was an exogenous non-volitional trial, as opposed to them endogenously non-volitionally pressing the button, if you get my drift. So what they found was, like I said, when they were allowed to volitionally make the action, their perception of the time of the action and the perception of the time of the tone got bound together. This became called intentional binding, and it's something that you hear a lot talked about in sort of sense of agency and action perception research. So really cool finding, really simple design, and one that's been used a lot in research since then to try and work out the underpinnings of sense of agency, how we implicitly feel a sense of ownership over the actions that we do and the outcome of those actions. So they're probably the design that I use the most in my own research, and it's the one that really I found very interesting learning about when I was preparing for my masters. I'd still say the Libet's free will experiment kind of blew my mind the most the first time I heard about it, but definitely Patrick Haggards' work on sense of agency is something that I think everyone interested in action research, if they don't know about already, should go and have a look at. Anything else you can bring away from this experiment? It was a very simple experiment that really showed something very profound. The fact that there are differences in our temporal perceptions when we are volitionally or non-volitionally making an action that we endogenously produce. Now this has had massive wider implications for research. Finding an implicit way you can look at how someone felt about their actions has really allowed for research into how we perceive action to increase quite a lot in the last 20 years or so. Personally, I think it's a design that's really well thought out and has been adapted and evolved into many different versions of it, whether it be just asking people to estimate the time between the two events, as opposed to looking at the clock and asking them to look at the clock at when either they press the button or at the beep, as well as design in which they have to press a button down for as long as they felt the interval between their button press and the beep was. I've already mentioned one study earlier which used used intentional binding to measure sense of agency and sense of ownership over actions and their outcomes. And I'm sure in weeks to come I will discuss more papers that have used intentional binding designs to look at how we infer control over our actions. That's all I have to say for this week. Please subscribe, give me advice about how I can make this a bit more interesting, a bit more of a user-friendly channel. I'm trying to cut down the time of these, as I feel like anything more than 5 minutes is probably too long for people to hold their attention to. But that's it for this week. Thanks again. See you later.